This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
GSMC Podcast Network. My name is Chris Blades, and before I get started here today, I want to make sure I remind you guys, as always, if you haven't already, please subscribe to the podcast. Make sure you never miss an episode. Make sure you're always on top of whenever we drop our latest stuff. If you could please as well, give us a 5-star rating, write us a review. Very appreciated, very helpful. See if you guys like, if you guys dislike, the ways we can improve, all that fun stuff. And also, if you're on social media, we're on social media, so you can find us there. Twitter, Instagram, Facebook. We can talk, we can chat, we can debate, we can discuss. And as is our weekly routine here on, for me, Sunday nights, but for you guys who are hearing this on Mondays, we shall discuss what the main thing there is to discuss in the world of sports right now, which is The Last Dance documentary. If you aren't caught up for whatever reason, then obviously skip these first two segments, because that's what I'm going to be discussing. If you don't want anything spoiled for you, if you weren't able to watch it Sunday night, no judgment, but if you don't want anything spoiled, then we can skip ahead. If it's not that serious for you, then hey, keep listening. But yeah, the episodes 5 and 6 came out tonight. I guess we're more than halfway through now, though I guess we'll see, because I believe there was a report that episode 9 was just edited and completed like this week, so they have 2 weeks to get episode 10 together. We'll see. We'll see if it takes longer than that or not, but hopefully they'll have it done by, I guess, yeah, like I said, hopefully they'll have it done in 2 weeks so we don't have to worry about the last 2 episodes getting pushed back. But I thought that was interesting when I found out that the documentary wasn't even done when they announced that they were going to release it, which I mean, I get it, because it wasn't supposed to be out until June, so I can understand why things weren't done, but it's just like, it's funny to think about them scrambling to get it done. But like I'm saying, episodes 5 and 6, and the first episode 5, started off with the Kobe tribute segment. I was surprised there wasn't more of it. I mean, granted, I don't know if there's going to be more Kobe throughout the rest of the doc, but I was just surprised there wasn't more Kobe in this episode, seeing as that was kind of what it was billed as. But in fairness, most of the things of what it's billed as per se are only like small parts of the documentary. It goes into, I mean, it's over the course of 2 hours, so they have a lot of stuff to touch on over the course of 2 hours. But yeah, the first part of it, because like, if you haven't, well, like I said, if you've been following, you know this, but I know a lot of people have had issues with this, the fact that it jumps around a little bit. It's not just like a singular, like, alright, it starts here and the end game is here kind of thing for the documentary. Like, the overall, I'm not theme, but like the overall, what the overall documentary is showing is the ups and downs and twists and turns and everything that went into the last season, obviously, but in order to provide some context and backstory and discuss other things within the documentary, because obviously this is probably one of the few times I'm going to be able to sit down with Mike and this many people to discuss these things. They want to discuss everything, so Tom's kind of jumping back and forth, and they do a nice job of displaying like the graphic of like, oh, okay, we're here now, then we're going to go back to here, because at the end of the day it always has to come back to 1998, because that was the, as Phil Jackson coined it, the last dance. So that's what, again, the documentary is mainly about, but they touch on different things here and there to try to, I guess, connect the dots and get you to better understand what they're going through at that time. So, like I said, it starts off in 98, the All-Star game, which was the last one he played with as a member of the Bulls. It was in, I think it was in New York, but don't quote me on that. But yeah, so that was the first time him and, well, I guess that would be, they played, when he was on the Wizards he played, but I guess that was the first time him and Kobe matched up in an All-Star game. And that was just a cool dynamic just to see the beginning of that relationship. And and just like the way he talked about him and the way that Kobe talked about Michael was just cool because it was he obviously had a lot of admiration for him. And I mean, if you watch Kobe play, you know that he drew a lot of his. I guess he gained a lot of his skill set from watching Mike and trying to emulate Mike, and that was obviously he said it himself that if it wasn't for him, then there would be no Kobe. Which I mean, again, makes sense in the style of play, the competitive nature, the moves, all that stuff Kobe was very reminiscent of MJ in that regard, and not having ever seen. Oh, I guess I probably saw MJ play a little bit on the Wizards, but obviously never seen any times with the Bulls. I was either not born, or if I was born, I was an infant, so I obviously don't remember any of that. But I think Kobe's probably the closest thing we're going to ever get to Michael Jordan, in my opinion. So it's just cool to see their dynamic and how, and like I said, being in their relationship and how much love they had for each other. But also this again, obviously Doc touches on a lot of things that I didn't know about previously, obviously. But another thing was just like, again, the beginning of Michael Jordan being as big or becoming as big as he was, and I guess the first step in that was getting that shoe deal together. And it was just interesting to find out that Adidas really had the shot to be the big brand for him. Now, again, who knows how the shoes would have came out if he was with Adidas instead of Nike. But it was funny to see that just how I guess I'd say how little he wanted to be with Nike at the time, and then how much his parents really had sway on him, and then obviously you see what an impact that had. Because I mean, again, not to say that Nike wouldn't have been big without him, but obviously having Michael Jordan and having him be as great as he was a great launch point for not only just MJ but for Nike itself. Because I mean, even though Jordan's a separate brand per se, it's still under them. It still allowed them to get other athletes and other things that maybe they wouldn't have gotten if Adidas again had gotten Mike, and then they was able to go from there. Obviously, at the time, I think the Converse was the shoe, and those shoes were disgusting. So I could see why MJ didn't want to go there, but it was just funny to see just how close it was to being Adidas. I mean, Adidas could have had him. They had Kobe for the first couple of shoes, and then that went haywire. He ended up going to Nike, and I think they tried to get LeBron, if I remember correctly, and then obviously he went to Nike too. So it's granted they're doing perfectly fine. Adidas is not struggling out here, so again, this isn't like a woe is me kind of thing for them, but it's just crazy to see how much they could have had over 30, 40 years of NBA basketball under them, and just would have dominated the game. Because I mean, that's kind of why Nike is where it's at, or I guess Jordan brand as an offshoot of that, just because they were able to get Jordan, and then everybody wanted to, as they showed in this documentary in these episodes, that they wanted to be like Mike. So that became easier to kind of pitch other athletes to be like, hey, if you sign with us, we can help you become this and that. And like I said, Adidas is doing well outside of the NBA, but NBA-wise, I guess their biggest guys were D Rose, and that obviously ended a little bit poorly, and then like Dwight Howard, I guess you could say. So like, again, a far cry. Well, D Rose could have been outside the injuries, and I know he had the little legal situation a couple years ago. But again, Kobe, LeBron, MJ, they would have potentially been the number one sports brand in the game, if that. So that was kind of crazy to see. Then like I said, they were talking about the shoes, obviously the introduction of Spike Lee and their relationship, which was again funny to see just because of obviously the battles they had. Well, mainly I know Spike had battles with everybody, especially him and Reggie Miller, but just kind of the battles the Knicks and the Bulls had, because that was another highlight of these two episodes, just like the different things the different battles that they had to go through. And it must have been a shame for Spike to be good friends with Mike, but then also to see him at the same time dominate his favorite team all the time, and then obviously knock them out of the playoffs. Almost, I guess, every time they MJ faced up with him. Obviously, I think the year after when he retires, then they faced up with the Bulls again, and they were able to beat them. But again, no MJ, so it's a little bit different. I think that was 90. Yeah, because the Magic was the year after. So then that was the year that they were able to get there. But that was interesting to see. And then obviously this was the beginning of showing just how competitive. I mean, not that we didn't already know how competitive, but just like kind of better understanding what fuels MJ and what fueled his greatness. So they talked about the 92 finals, which was against the Portland Trailblazers, and just how Clyde was supposed to be the next big thing, and he was being compared to MJ, and how that drove MJ. And then obviously I looked at him, scoring 31 in the first half of Game 1, hitting the 6 threes, doing the Jordan shrug that everybody knows, which obviously came back again later in the next episode in a different capacity, which we'll talk about. But yeah, that was just interesting to see. I mean, obviously you knew that. Everybody knows like what happened in the series, but just trying to understand like the way in which MJ psychs himself up for games and whatever little thing he can use in order to get himself a competitive advantage, to get himself the motivation he needs to go out and dominate in the way. And obviously, again, it probably didn't work every game. They don't release the games that he doesn't do well. That's not really a part of his lore, which is fair. I mean, obviously, in 20, 30 years, no one's going to... I mean, well, it's different because LeBron's finals record is more shaky, but people aren't going to talk about every bad game he has. Obviously, going to remember the Mavs series because that was like such a huge moment. But like, they're not going to remember every poor game he had, or every bad shooting performance, every jumper he missed, or every game winner he missed, or whatever. That's not a part of the lore. And the same thing with MJ is that you mainly talk about the success because he just had so much of it. It just kind of clouds, and then it's been so long that no one can really... You only remember the highs, you don't really always remember the lows. So that was interesting to see, and then obviously in conjunction with that was the whole Dream Team thing, which they discussed. Obviously that was right after that, and it was just crazy to go more in detail about that famed All-Star, I mean not All-Star, but this famed scrimmage between the two teams. I guess it was Magic and Barkley, and then Jordan, Scotty, and then whoever else was on the various teams. But just like, you'd heard about it from the NBA, they showed on NBA TV, like the Dream Team documentary. You understood and you heard about the famed scrimmage, but they obviously had more footage, and so that was funny to see and funny to hear about, just because I know just to hear about the trash talk back and forth and the competitiveness, and see or hear Magic describing him talking trash to MJ, and then MJ scoring like how many points in a row to bring the team after they were down 8 back up 2. And then also seeing him throwing the ball in the stands after he got called, after MJ drew a foul. MJ kind of telling him that, like, hey, his time's over. Like, this is the 90s now. This is not the 80s back when you and Bird ran things. Like, this is the 90s. Like, this is my time. Kind of things. Even though Magic had just won MVP not that long ago, so that makes it even more funny. But just like, I guess that's what everyone realized in that moment, was that, like, oh, okay, we're all great players here. We've all had great moments, but, like, this guy is that guy. For all intents and purposes, again, he didn't lead the team in scoring on the Dream Team. I think that was Charles, which is, again, a testament to how great Charles was. Why Draymond ever thinks he can compare himself with him is beyond me, but that's a different conversation. But yeah, so it just went to show just how, on a team full of great players, that they all realized that MJ was that guy in that moment. So that was interesting to hear about. And then I guess the rest of the episode was kind of talking about like the whole like be like Mike image, and everyone wouldn't be like him, everyone to show him how he was all perfect and everything. And then the thing with the Democratic, I think it was the governor nominee, where it was like a black guy, and he didn't necessarily outright support him because of the whole like potential like famed quote like Republicans wear or buy shoes too and everything. And then even though, while that very well is true, the guy who was running up against, I think his name was Jesse Helms, like that should have been an easy guy to be able to defend, or to be able to oppose, I should say. Again, he didn't teach his own, but it was just interesting to see, because obviously one of the big criticisms of the doc from people, at least on Twitter, I don't know about everywhere, but they were like, oh, it always paints him in a good light, blah, blah, blah. It's like they never show anything bad with him, and this was obviously them showing him and having him discuss some things that were, and they talked about in the next episode, 2 things that weren't necessarily always positive, because I know he got caught a lot of backlash for not being able to support or back the one nominee in order to like combat, like, again, the racist other nominee. And I guess he made the interesting point of just the fact that he always viewed himself as a basketball player, not necessarily a role model. Yeah, you said in the quote, this from the Undefeated, that they tweeted this out. I never thought of myself as an activist. Jordan said I thought of myself as a basketball player. Was that selfish? Probably, but that was my energy. And again, whether you think it's right or wrong is one thing, but it is the least good of him to acknowledge that, like, and again, this one should have been easy for him to disown or like just pick a side on. But if that's not who he was, I'd rather you not be fake than try to portray something that you're not. And at the same time, I guess it's a different conversation we can have maybe on down the line. But a lot of people kind of view athletes and go to them to discuss political things or discuss like hear their opinions on things that we care about. And again, not to say that they shouldn't also care about these things, but I don't go to my athletes I don't go to them for them to speak for me on opinion or have opinions on things. I have my opinions. Other people have their opinions. They can support or feel however they want to feel. I'm not like pining to hear like what LeBron has to say or what Steph has to say. Again, they come out and say things on their own, though. When somebody argue, like nothing a lot of the things they pick and choose to talk about are easy to discuss, because obviously when the whole China thing went down with the NBA earlier, LeBron was a little bit more cautious around that. But when it's about like different like political views or different things that many people are, there's like a public opinion on one side or the other, they can go out on support on the side that the majority is on, and then it's like, all right, yeah, and then obviously get a little bit of backlash here and there. But it's not they like stuck their neck out of there. They're like their endorsements are on the line or their jobs on the line, kind of thing. Not like it's not a Muhammad Ali situation where you're going to lose your title, you're going to get sent to jail, different things because you're opposition to something. So that's again, it's a different era, but it was just interesting to hear him kind of finally. I don't know finally because I don't know everything he's discussed, but just to openly talk about that incident and just like his thought process. And again, whether or not you agree with it, you can at least respect him for having a stance and sticking to it. I'd rather that than you be fake. So again, whether I agree with it or not is a separate point. But it was just, like I said, it was interesting to see, especially going off the heels that they were talking about the whole Be Like Mike thing, where everybody was trying to be like him. He was always like positive. But then when you're at the top, people always want to try to find a way to tear you down. And this was, again, an opportunity that he could have taken to openly oppose someone that should have been easy to oppose. But that's not who you are. That's not who you are. I can't make you be something you're not. So more power to him. That's what he wanted to stick with. But again, I appreciated him at least confronting it and discussing it, because, like I said, he could have just avoided it. He could have just had them cut it out the doc. He could have not answered the questions about it. So he did at least do that. And like I said, I understand his point. Like he's a basketball player. He's not an activist. He's not in politics. He's not anything. That's not who he is. That's not his game. And that's not you. That's not you. I can't make you, like I said, can't make you be something you're not. So I'd rather you just be who you are and stick to your guns than, again, try to be fake and try to play to what people want you to say or what they think you should say. If that's not how you feel or that's not what you want to talk about, then that's not what you want to talk about. It is what it is. Like I said, we can agree to disagree on certain things, but again, if that's not you, that's not you. I can't make you be that. LeBron, he's openly discussed things. That's just his personality. That's who he is. If MJ wasn't like that, then I understand why he wouldn't want to speak. But again, that one should have been an easy one to talk about. But yeah, so then that was interesting. That was an interesting transition. And last thing before I get on to the next segment was, I think in the documentary they mentioned how they were hoping to make $3 million by year 4 with going back to the Nike thing when you first signed the deal, and they ended up making like $126 million in the first year. So again, just showing what Adidas could have had and how they very, very hugely, I don't even know if that's the right word, but how they really just fumbled the bag completely. Because that could have been them. That could have been Adidas. And they couldn't make it work. And then here you go. And now, like I said, as they like to say, the rest is history. So, like I said, there's a lot to touch on in that first episode. I probably didn't even touch on everything I could have. This is just kind of some of the highlights I wanted to discuss. But yes, and that goes on to episode 6. And so we'll talk about that after the break. But that one was more on some things that weren't exactly always positive about Mike. So, like I said, we'll talk about his opinion on those things. Then we'll get into more of the Knicks versus Bulls and Knicks versus Suns, 2 very, very big series in the same season that helped showcase just how difficult it was to get to that first three-peat. And obviously, again, we're learning about the second three-peat, but this is the first three-peat and it was just as hard. So we'll discuss that right after this break. Stay right there.
You really can't underestimate the importance of having the right creative work for your brand or your product. Whether it's a logo, a website, a book cover, or an ad campaign, you really need a quality design to make that big difference pop and deliver your overall engagement and success in a competitive market. That's where Design Crowd comes in. Design Crowd has over 750,000 designers from Sydney to San Francisco ready to help you with awesome creative ideas. They make crowdsourcing work for you. So if you need a logo or you're working on your creative branding, you can go to designcrowd.com and post a brief describing the design you need. And then within about 2 to 7 days, you'll receive up to over 100 different designs from designers around the world. Then you pick the best design and approve payment to the designer. So you're only paying for the design that you want. It takes a lot of the guesswork out of freelancing and out of crowdsourcing. And you don't have to be a huge company like Harvard Business School to use Design Crowd, although they have used it as well. You can start a project on Design Crowd for as little as $99. And if you go right now to designcrowd.com/health and wellness or enter the promo code health and wellness on their website, then our health and wellness listeners will receive up to $150 off of your design project. That's designcrowd.com/health and wellness or entering that promo code health and wellness.
Are you looking for the very best NFL and college football podcast? Then check out the GSMC Football Podcast. Get the latest football news both on and off the field. From the NFL Draft to trades to the rumor mill to the NFL Combines. They got you covered. That's GSMCpodcast.com/football-podcast. Get updates on college rivalries, game day insights, and much, much more. It's football talk the way you want it. This show eats, sleeps, and breathes football. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
Episode 6. It starts off with him, I guess, doing an interview talking about like how difficult it is, or him like taping takes of him discussing, or him just like doing a tagline for like everyone wants to say they want to be like Mike, but it's not really all cracked up to be. And I've always said that I feel like being rich, fun; being famous, terrible. Especially just as much now, because as we saw in this documentary, or I guess if you haven't seen it yet, you will see. Michael was arguably the biggest sports figure in the world, depending on who you ask. I mean, you could definitely, there's a very real case that he is, and there's no real debate. It's like everywhere he go, everywhere he went, everything, it didn't matter where he was, what he was doing, people were there, people wanted to sign autographs, take pictures, put a microphone in his face, everything. It didn't, like I said, the guy couldn't go anywhere without being harassed. And that's the thing, is that when you're at that level, you can't come off and be like, nah, I don't feel like taking a picture today. Just because then you want to, this might be a lot of athletes feel that obligation to be like, oh, I want to be on, not on my best behavior, but like, I want to put on a good front for them, just because then that might be the only time they see me, then now they're out there trashing me and doing whatever, so you want to try to be as good as you can. But at the same time, I mean, these guys are human too. They're being treated almost, not like zoo animals, but just like people just think they can come up to them anytime, any place, and be like, hey, can I get a picture? Hey, can I get an autograph? And I'm just like that. And when you're at that level, you kind of almost, not that you can't say no, because again, I know for a fact he has said no in different instances, but it's just as hard because you got so many people asking you. But it's like if you do one, then it's like, how do you decide like when you start and when you stop? And it's just like a whole mess. That's what I'm saying. So like I've always argued being famous sounds like the worst thing in the world. And again, I imagine it's only gotten worse now, because then the whole social media thing, then like you'll blow somebody off immediately. They're firing off a tweet, or they're sending something out, trashing you, berating you, being like, oh, this guy's a terrible person, he's this, he's that, blah, blah, blah. All because you didn't want to take a picture because maybe you're busy, or maybe you're having a bad day, or you're in a rush or something, you just don't have the time. But then, like I said, they don't care about that. No one, all they care about is that you blew them off in their one chance to meet you to get the picture or whatever. That, like, again, I'm a person, not that I wouldn't be happy to meet different celebrities, but I'm not a picture guy, so I'm just like, at the end of the day, you take a picture, I guess, to, like, make a memory of it or whatever, but, like, in reality, it's also just that you could have proof to show people that you did it. I mean, you could go up to somebody and be like, hey, shake their hand, say what's up, have a quick little chat or whatever, depending on the person. And all you need to do is you need to know that. But, like, now, everyone has to take a picture, everyone has to do this, post it on the gram, post it on Twitter, wherever, Facebook, and be like, just to show people, like, hey, I met this person, like, blah, blah, blah. And I'm just like, at the end of the day, like, it's for you. Like, me taking a picture with someone doesn't erase the fact that I met them or I didn't meet them, whatever. That's just for me to show, I guess, I, like, have proof or whatever. Like, you didn't, like, it's not like you came up, you asked a guy for a picture, hey, they said they were nice to take a picture with you, boom, they moved on. It's not, you didn't have to meet them, you didn't have a conversation, you didn't sit down, you didn't eat dinner, you didn't eat lunch, you didn't get a drink, nothing. You just, like, you stopped them randomly at whatever place, you took a picture, and then, like, you moved on. Like, I don't see why that's a big deal. Like I said, I would be happy to meet a lot of different celebrities, or athletes, or movie stars, or musicians, or whoever. But I'm not, like, the guy that's, like, pressed to be like, oh, we have to get a picture. I'm just like, again, I know what happened. I don't need, like, proof that it happened. But that's just me. Like, if we had, like, a nice long dinner or whatever, then I want to take a picture just, like, commemorate, like, to remember the day. Alright, cool. But if it's just, like, a quick little pass, like, hey, what's up, kind of thing, I'd never understood the need to take pictures with celebrities. Autographs, that's a completely different story. Autographs, like, if I could get an autograph, yeah. But, like, a picture, it's like, what am I going to do, get the picture framed? Maybe. I guess it depends on the athlete I met. But it's just, that doesn't seem like, that isn't really a driving thing for me. But again, to each their own. So yeah, that was the talking a lot about that, just about how it seems so stressful being like again, he talked about, like, most people wouldn't want to do that, and I agreed. It did not look fun at all. Like, again, it's probably cool because, like, you're great at basketball and you have a lot of money, you have the shoes and everything, blah, blah, blah. But, like, again, just, like, the circus he has to go through every day in every city just seems like a lot to deal with. I see why he retired the first time and the second time, because, like, it seems just like a lot to deal with. Like, you don't feel like having to go through all that all the time. So that was that, and then also in this episode, they touched on the gambling. I was going to say not a lot, but they kind of did go into detail. Just, like, this man was gambling on everything. Like I mentioned the Jordan Shrug thing earlier, he was, like, with the, like, Bulls security, like the United Center security or whatever, they're just, like, tossing quarters and see how close they could get to the wall or whatever. It's like a weird game to play. But again, as they discussed in the doc, and obviously he did an interview on it, like, Mike was, if you don't want to say he had a gambling problem, was just, like, competitive. Like, he would literally compete in anything with anybody. Didn't matter how much money it was for. He just wanted to make sure that you didn't have whatever money you had before the game started. And they would keep playing. He talked about they would keep playing until he eventually won. Even if he was losing, he would keep playing, until he eventually won enough to be like, alright, yeah, I'm good. Or maybe he wouldn't. Like, again, everyone has their bad nights. That was interesting to see, because when Jordan bet the security guy, that kind of looked like the one, I think it was, if you ever watched Martin, like the White Bob character, people were saying that, and I was like, yeah, I could definitely see it. It was kind of funny. But yes, he like bet the guy that he couldn't get it closer than he could. Then on the first toss, he got it, hit him with the Jordan Shrug, and then took his, like, I think it was like $20 or whatever. So it was just funny. Just like the, I guess audacity is kind of right, just the goal to just be like, oh, I just took Jordan's money, I'm gonna hit him with his own pose. That was kind of funny to me. So shout out to that guy, the Bull security guy. He was cool. But yes, and touched on, and then this also touched on, I guess, the 92-93 season. The Sam Smith book that came out, the Jordan Rules, just talking about all the turmoil and stuff that Bulls were dealing with. Claimed it was Horace. Don't know if it was Horace. I know he had some issues with Bill Cartwright too, just like freezing him out and stuff. So it might have been him. Horace claimed it wasn't him, but again, if it were me, I would claim it wasn't me too. So was an interesting thing, but that was kind of the beginning of just like Jordan. Again, there's probably other reasons, but just the beginning of Jordan wanting to retire after that season, just because again he was, when you're at the top, again, as they talked about, a lot of people love like the rise and fall story kind of thing. They want to see you on the uptick, and then when you get to the top, they want to see you fall back down, because again, being too successful is no fun. That's why people like myself hate the Patriots, hate other great teams, just because again, once you're at the top too long, people want to see you come back down. That's why many people took solace and were happy when Tom Brady left the Buccaneers, just because it meant like it hopefully doesn't mean that they end up getting Trevor Lawrence or somebody like that next year, but for the time being, at least they should be sorry this year. Though, I mean, the AFC East isn't like that great. It just should be better. So, and they're also starting Jarrett Stidham, who I don't know how good he is. Not to get off the Jordan thing, but again, yeah. So just like people want to see the champion or the whoever's at the top come back down, because that's just more fun than just being at the top the whole time. So that was kind of the Sam Smith book was the beginning of people like taking jabs at Jordan, as they were talking about with the Knicks and Bulls Eastern Conference Finals series. I know that was a big thing. Just like the media kind of poking at Jordan. Again, unfortunately for the Knicks fans, they took the Knicks franchise. They took the brunt of it. I know after the game 2, when they went up 2-0 on the Bulls, he went down to Atlantic City, doing a little gambling. I mean, different reasons for why. He claimed to just blow off steam or whatever, but then also they did touch on the fact that he threw out different points. He owed different people a lot of money. He was also a witness in a criminal case with a man by the name of Slim, who he golfed with. But yeah, so he dealt with some shady, interesting characters, which, I mean, when you gamble, I imagine you run into some interesting characters. But yeah, so like, whatever reason he was down there is whatever reason. It is what it is. But again, a lot of me was talking about that kind of tearing him down for that. And as we talked about, Jordan will use literally anything as motivation. So everybody trashing him and everyone talking down to him. Unfortunately for the Knicks, took it out on them. Came back, they won 4 straight games. I believe in game 4, he had like 54 points or something like that. Absurd. It's a shame. The highlight of that series is, I think, John Starks dunking on Jordan and Horace Grant a little bit in game 2. Kind of helped cement that they went up 2-0. Then again, it didn't really. The rest of the series was not exactly that fun for Knicks fans. So sorry you had to relive that. But unfortunately, the Knicks have been on the losing end of a lot of teams' best moments since I've been alive, so the last 24, 25 years. It's a shame. If you're a Knicks fan, I understand like your misery you've gone through. But, I mean, it's Jordan. There's not much you could do. So then he talked about that, and then he talked about the Suns series, which was up against Chuck and the Suns. Oh, well, obviously the Suns. But then, again, I don't even know if I forgot to mention this in the last episode. But this was another instance of him just taking out his frustration on people, was the whole Tony Kukoc game in the Olympics. Was how, like, again, they thought Jerry Krause was talking about how he's going to replace Scotty, and Scotty and MJ took that personal, and they took it to Kukoc when he was just, I guess, again, he was like a newer guy, kind of didn't really, and he was expecting that, just like guys picking him up the whole floor, just putting all that kind of defensive pressure on him, just like an out-of-body experience for him. It was really a shame to see. I think he had like 3 points in that game or something. Obviously I didn't watch it live, but when they were recounting and just like re-going through the highlights, it was just like Tony had no idea. It wasn't his fault. It was all, again, they just hated Jerry Krause so much that anything that he liked, they were going to put a stop to. So again, it was unfortunate for Tony Kukoc that he took the brunt of it, because he seems like a nice guy, and obviously he came back. So more power to him. He came back in that championship game. A lot of people would have folded up before even playing, and he came out, had a good game. Obviously, Croatia wasn't good enough. When no one was. I think they said the lowest amount of points they won by the USA, the Dream Team, there was 32, and that was in the finals against Croatia. I think they lost by 32 and 33 points, Croatia did, and everyone else was by a lot more than that. So, shout out to Croatia for keeping it close, I guess you could say. But yeah, so that just shows, again, but that's what a lot of Americans don't understand about these foreign people, is that they come from situations that are much worse than we can expect. Like, again, at the time, Chris is going through like Civil War, and he's been dealing with that and stuff, and had to live through that. While America, again, our issue now is that people don't want to be quarantined or stay home to save like the lives of people that they don't know, or just people they potentially do know, like your family members could catch the coronavirus. But no, everyone's like, oh, we've been home too long, like open economy, blah blah blah, and I'm just like, just chill. Like again, a lot of countries deal with a lot worse stuff, and there's like this. No other country, I'm gonna say no other country, but not that many other countries have had protests openly during the coronavirus pandemic, just to be like, hey, open things back up. We want to congregate in large spaces again and potentially catch the virus and potentially die. Like, who does that? But again, that's just America for you. So then that's our problems. And again, he was going through a civil war in his country at the time. So again, people were talking about his toughness, but that was just, like I said, that was kind of off base. But yes, then fast forward to the next year, there was a guy, I think Dan Majori or whatever. There was a guy who was a good defender that Jerry Krause thought was a very good defender, and Michael Jordan made it a point to show him that he was not a good defender and embarrass him whenever he could. I think in the Phoenix series he averaged. I'm trying to think what that average was. He averaged. Where's the tweet? I had the tweet up. I think he averaged. He averaged like 40 points or something. Dang, I'm mad I can't find it. But he averaged like 40 points and like. I'm really mad I can't find the tweet. I definitely had it. Yeah, he averaged like 40 points, 50% shooting, like 40% shooting from three, something absurd. And it's just like, again, it was just a point because that coupled with the fact that Chuck had won the MVP that year, and I think he finished third behind Kareem, or Hakeem, not Kareem. Hakeem, because Hakeem finished second. So then he was taking that on Chuck too, to be like, this guy's not better than me, which he wasn't. So he's taking that out. So again, just another example of when you, and that's kind of the cool or interesting thing about all these greats, is that they have this sort of competitive nature that no normal human being can understand. Like, they can find motivation and out of anything, literally. Like, they feel slighted, or this person says they're going to do well against them, or they have a vendetta against this other person, or whoever. They can take that and motivate them and get them to turn it on. Again, just most people can't do. Most people can't just get mad at other people for no reason at all. But MJ could, and that again is why he was so great. So that was, again, this episode, or these two episodes really did a good job of exemplifying that and just showing like the lengths in which Jordan would go to be great. Which is, again, he would take even the slightest little thing, whether it was the media, whether it was other players, whether it was Krause, whether it was whoever. Anything that he could use as fuel, he used it, and obviously it worked for him. Again, just in my opinion, he's the greatest basketball player of all time. LeBron's more talented, which is a completely different debate, but the 6-0 in the finals thing, it's really hard to pass. It's really hard to argue with that. 6 finals MVPs, everything. Again, you could argue most of the times he had a better team per se. But even the Suns team he played, that was a very good team. Had the MVP, and he just dominated them. Granted, they need John Paxson to 3 in order to not force it to Game 7. But yet and still, and that's the other thing. No Game 7s ever in the finals. That's an impressive feat, in my opinion. So yeah, that's a different conversation. But like I said, these two episodes are great, and it was just funny to hear after season, after all you'd been through with like the media and then like the Jordan Rules book and the gambling and all that stuff. Just to hear, it's always funny to hear how people react to whenever they win. Just in like that one, was just like, I guess also that's the third one, so it's not as, you're not as happy as the first one, obviously, but just like it was funny. Just everyone was just like, they was like relieved, just like, thank God this is over, thank God we didn't lose, kind of thing. Just not even like that much enjoyment, which again probably lends itself to why next week will be the episode where we discuss their retirement. Because again, when what Jordan had gone through that season and the way he felt, he was just like, yeah, no, I'm done. I don't feel like dealing with this anymore. And like I said, the whole be like Mike thing, the whole keeping up the perfect image, the media scrutiny, the energy that's exerted in order to get to this point again and again and again. It's just like, I get it. I really do. Because again, when you've done what very few people can ever do, you've three-peated. Again, it would have been cool to see him go for 4 or 5 in a row, potentially. But again, at the same time, I understand why he was like, yeah, no, I'm good. I really do. Like I said, being famous sounds trash. Absolutely positively trash. You can't do anything without being scrutinized or judged or looked at or whatever. Rich, by all means. I would love to be rich. It doesn't really matter the means or the way. I've always talked about it'd be cool to win the lottery, though. Again, if you live in a certain state, they put your name in the paper. Can't have that. Don't want people knowing I'm rich, because then that ruins the point of being rich. I mean, people, you can know you're being rich from like the things you have or the things you can do, but just like my putting my name and picture in the paper, being like, this person just won the lottery, and now everyone knows that. That doesn't seem fun. Because now, I'm already going to move, but now I got to move to like a different state or whatever. Because now I can't be known as the guy that won the Mega Millions or the Powerball or whatever. Because then people are just going to come to me, bother me, all that terrible stuff. Ask for interviews. Not trying to deal with that. Again, fame, trash, wealth. I think all of us would be happy with that. But yeah. So again, next episode 7 and 8 next week. Should be fun. I know I will be tuned in. I would advise you to tune in if you can. If you haven't, don't know why, but again, no judgment here. I'm just saying it's been a very good documentary so far, and like I said, I don't imagine it's going to take a nosedive in the last 4 episodes. So I know what I'll be doing next week. I advise you to join me there on the couch and turn on ESPN or ESPN 2 if you don't like the cursing. I like hearing. I don't mind cursing in my movies or TV shows or whatever. So I think it's kind of interesting. It adds another layer to it. But if you don't like the cursing, ESPN 2 is your thing. So that we will see how that goes next week. But yeah, so after next week, we're going to come back and we're going to discuss Andy Dalton, surprisingly enough. He found a new home very quickly. It's not exactly where I thought he was going to end up. But again, he found one. And we'll talk about that, talk about what it could potentially mean for Cam, because he's still unsigned, which is kind of nuts. And what it could mean for the quarterback on the team in which he signed with. Because, they're still... That quarterback situation is still a little up in the air. So we'll discuss all that after the break. Stay right there.
You really can't underestimate the importance of having the right creative work for your brand or your product. Whether it's a logo, a website, a book cover, or an ad campaign, you really need a quality design to make that big difference pop and deliver your overall engagement and success in a competitive market. That's where Design Crowd comes in. Design Crowd has over 750,000 designers from Sydney to San Francisco ready to help you with awesome creative ideas. They make crowdsourcing work for you. So if you need a logo or you're working on your creative branding, you can go to designcrowd.com and post a brief describing the design you need. And then within about 2 to 7 days, you'll receive up to over 100 different designs from designers around the world. Then you pick the best design and approve payment to the designer. So you're only paying for the design that you want. It takes a lot of the guesswork out of freelancing and out of crowdsourcing. And you don't have to be a huge company like Harvard Business School to use Design Crowd, although they have used it as well. You can start a project on Design Crowd for as little as $99. And if you go right now to designcrowd.com/health and wellness or enter the promo code health and wellness on their website, then our health and wellness listeners will receive up to $150 off of your design project. That's designcrowd.com/health and wellness or entering that promo code health and wellness.
Check out the show that's built on the MMA. From the UFC to extreme cage fighting, they got the fights covered. Check out the GSMC MMA podcast. Get the latest news on past or upcoming fights. Join us as we talk to and about some of the biggest names in the MMA, past, present, and future. When it's the fight game, there's just one show to check out. GSMCpodcast.com/MMA-podcast. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit GSMCpodcast.com for more info.
are back here once again on the GSMC Sports Podcast presented by GSMC Podcast Network. So, like I said, Andy Dalton has found himself a new home with the Dallas Cowboys, surprisingly enough, as the backup, obviously. I think he signed for like 1 year, $3 million guaranteed, and up to $7 million with like incentives and other things, I guess, if he has to play for Dak or whatever. And I didn't list that as a possibility. I thought like Jacksonville was an option because of the whole Jay Gruden thing. I forgot the other. I listed another one too, but I didn't even take into account the fact that he's from Texas, Katy, Texas, and went to TCU, so it should have been there. Though I guess in fairness, I just didn't put it together just because last year they went into the year with Cooper Rush as the backup, and I figured that if it worked good enough for them last year, they would just go into. But in fairness, Andy Dalton is an improvement on Cooper Rush. I think. I don't really know. I've never seen him play in like a meaningful game. That wasn't like I've only seen him play in like preseason stuff, and even then I don't really follow the Cowboys too tough. At least in preseason wise, during the season, yeah, but just I have to know about what they're doing, NFC's foes and all that stuff. Just preseason, I couldn't tell you what happened with Cooper Rush. But, like I said, again, it was a rare opportunity of a guy wanting to come back home, you could say. Like I said, he's from Texas, so it would be cool to play in Texas with the Cowboys. And then, again, also you could say that they could use an improvement at backup quarterback, because no one really knows what Cooper Rush is or isn't. Cowboys fans on Twitter made the argument that had they had a better backup quarterback, Dak wouldn't have gone out there and played with the hurt throwing shoulder and maybe potentially... I forget if it was throwing hand or non-throwing hand that was like partly broken in the game against the Eagles in Week 16 that they ended up losing, and thus losing the NFC East crown on if they could have played a backup quarterback for a game. And I'm not going to say Andy Dalton would have won them that game because, again, Andy Dalton was not good last year. He got benched for Ryan Finley, who was also not good. So, tells you what you need to know about Andy Dalton, at least this past year. Again, he's had his good moments, at least in the early part of his career, which is kind of weird, because normally you think as you get older you get better, but then he hasn't had a winning record in I think at least 4 years. Though I'm not a person that thinks quarterback record is like a real stat, or wins and losses like a real quarterback stat, because again there's a lot more things that go into quarterback play or go into wins and losses, I have to say, than just the play of the quarterback. Obviously that can help things out if your quarterback's good, but again, or hurt things I guess if your quarterback's bad. But again, there are good quarterbacks that win and there are bad quarterbacks that lose. Blake Bortles went to the AFC Championship game. Everyone knew he wasn't a good quarterback. Nick Foles is getting a starting job again, and I love Nick Foles just because what he did. Shout out Super Bowl 52 for the Eagles. But again, he's getting a starting gig just based solely on the fact that he's won a Super Bowl before and had like a halfway decent season. And not halfway decent, obviously a very good season, 27-2. With the Eagles, but then I guess he's had he's been good in backup spots. When he had to fill in for Carson Wentz when he got hurt, but just as a starter, never really been like that great. Like even the year after the 27-2, he was like the team was doing well, but he wasn't really playing that great. Though they had some injuries on the O-line, so that kind of helped. Then he ended up getting hurt. Then he went to the Rams, wasn't good. I think he ended up getting he got benched. And then cut, I think. I don't remember exactly how the Rams thing went, but again, didn't work out. Then Jacksonville, obviously, what happened in Jacksonville. Broke his collarbone, then tried to come back, then lost a job to Gardner Minshew, then he got traded. So again, different people put more stock in the quarterback win stat than I do, because again, I think there's a lot more to it than just winning and losing. I know that's kind of this is one of the early things Skip Bayless got people on, was the whole Tebow thing. And just like the whole clutch gene, and he's a winner, blah blah blah. And again, not that Tebow didn't win at all levels, but he was like really bad for most games until the fourth quarter. Then he played well enough to win. But again, if their defense isn't playing that well, then they're not even in the game, because he was bad the first 3.5 quarters. So there's more to winning. Again, Tebow had to do the stuff at the end of the game than he did, and obviously he won the playoff game against Pittsburgh. That was actually a very good performance by him. But the regular season, he was there were a lot of games where he was bad until the very end, and then they would win, and it's all right, he has his clutch gene, he's so clutch, blah, blah, blah. But I'm if you were just better through the first 3.5 quarters, they wouldn't have been in that position. So, but yeah, so Andy Dalton now with the Cowboys, good for him. But it was very weird to me. And I mean, I don't think Dak is going anywhere, nor should any Cowboys fan, nor should any logical football fan believe that Dak is going anywhere. But it is kind of odd that they paid everyone but the quarterback, when normally the quarterback is the guy that gets paid first and the guy that doesn't have to hold out potentially for his deal. I mean, only recently, I guess we've seen it with Kirk Cousins. We kind of had to fight, and then obviously didn't end up getting a deal, ended up signing with the Vikings, and they've been all right with them, but nothing too special. This is what got to the wild card round this past year. I mean, divisional round, I should say, this past year. Which is not bad, but again, they were coming off a championship game when they signed him, so hasn't lived up to that hype. He was supposed to be the guy to put them over the hump, and I mean, I could have told you that wasn't going to happen, but again, who knows? Maybe something will change this year. Probably not, because they traded stuff on Diggs. But yeah, so just it's just a weird dynamic a weird situation that the Cowboys are going through right now, where you have the guy that should be your franchise quarterback, and yet for whatever reason you guys can't agree on a contract extension. That again, normally with guys, even if you, I mean, everybody's opinions on Dak is a little bit different, but with his resume, they're coming off of almost a 5,000-yard season, though they went 8-8, but again, that wasn't all his fault, even though his statistics against winning teams with winning records last year was not that great. Don't tell Cowboys fans. But yeah, and so again, with his resume and stuff, had the Rookie of the Year, made it to the playoffs, had 13-3 seasons, won the NFC East twice. It's good enough to get an extension for most guys, especially as a 4th-round pick. It's just why the hold up? And again, like I said, he's going to get paid eventually. It's just why the hang up? Because for whatever reason, normally speaking, quarterbacks just get their money. They don't have to haggle. They don't have to hold out. They don't have to take the franchise tag. Normally, whatever. They just get their money. Not to say that that's right. That's just normally how things go. Now, for whatever reason, the Cowboys have decided they're not going to be that team. They're going to be the team that makes sure they gets the best value for the quarterback. And I'm just why? But they didn't have any issues paying Tony Romo, as Des pointed out on Twitter. I know she's paying him. In his own draft class, Wentz and Goff, neither of them had issues getting paid. And they both had, I guess Goff was coming off the Super Bowl. But Wentz was coming off an injury. They had hang-ups with that. Didn't matter. They still paid him. I know the teams picked up the 5th-year options for Mahomes and Deshaun Watson, but they're both going to get their extensions whenever that is, sometime this summer. Again, if you're the franchise quarterback of the team, you get paid. It doesn't, again, you don't have to haggle. You don't have to, beg or whatever for your money. It's just the dynamic is just weird, and, the way they're playing this is just weird. You got and pay a backup quarterback. Not to say that that's a bad pickup, because again, they probably needed one over a Cooper Rush. And it wasn't that expensive. But you do that, but then you just won't pay your the franchise quarterback until sometime in the summer, coming to his 5th year. We should have already had an extension, because they could have got it to him before last season was done. They decided to hold out. Again, they didn't make the playoffs, but he threw for almost 5,000 yards and around 30 touchdowns or whatever. He had a great season. Again, did the team success live up to his season? No, and that's fair. But again, on his end, he did everything he was supposed to do. Well, I guess outside of winning a Super Bowl or whatever. But statistically, he did a lot of what he was supposed to do. The number's not going to go down. So I'm just what's the game they're playing here? And then, as we saw with Zeke, I don't think Dak's going to be afraid to hold out. Because why would you? You're a 4th-round pick. You've been making pennies on the dollar for this team for 4 years. You've given them 2 NFC East championships. The other guys in my draft class that have arguably done less than me have both gotten paid. Why not me? And again, they were 1st-round picks, so they're making a lot more money. Dak's been getting paid chump change these last 4 years. And again, if you sign the franchise tag, he'll still be making a good amount of money. That's not the issue. But it's in football, if I were a player, I would need that long-term security. Because again, the game's so unpredictable. And again, as durable as Dak has been, all it takes is just one freak thing to happen. And then boom, he's hurt, he's out for the year. Like, injuries don't just happen to the quote-unquote injury prone. They can happen, I should say, to everybody. Even like Brett Favre or whoever, who had the long-term Iron Man streak, he was hurt. He just played through hurt injuries. And obviously Dak did with the shoulder thing, but he didn't play well. But yeah, he played through. He was hurt and he played through stuff. Same with like Matt Stafford, he played through stuff until he couldn't this year. Eli never really took big hits because he would just fall down in the pocket. So he had a long streak, but again, he was just never really out there doing much, and he wasn't a runner, so he didn't expose himself in that way. And Dak's a big guy, so he's been able to take that. But again, all it takes is one guy diving at your leg wrong when it's in a position where it's not supposed to be, and now you're done for the year. Now they have no reason to give you the big extension. So if I'm him, I understand why I'm holding out. And again, the franchise tag is great; it's great money, but it's just like, why not just give me the long-term security that I've been looking for after 4 years of doing great things for the franchise? When you haven't had issues paying people in the past, and the quarterbacks especially never really have to do this or go through that. Last guy it happened with was Kirk Cousins, and Washington's like still potentially searching for their quarterback. They don't know if Haskins is the guy, just because they were just like, they could have stayed with Kirk. I don't think he's like that great, but he's also like not terrible. So they could find worse, and Haskins is worse than him at this moment. Not to say he can't become better, but at this moment he's worse than Kirk Cousins. So there is that. But just like where they're going to roll with Andy Dalton to begin the season if Dak doesn't show up, like no. I understand, like he's had good years with worse supporting cast around him, but I mean, again, Andy Dalton got benched for Ryan Finley last year for a reason. Again, were the rest of the Bengals team bad? Yes, but he's had losing seasons. Even when, I know AJ Green's been hurt and stuff, but even when AJ Green was there, it's not like they didn't win anything. They got to the playoffs. Cool. Never won a playoff game. Like I said, had 4 straight losing seasons. I'm not gonna say Andy Dalton's. There are worse backup quarterbacks you can have, but just like what, like why would I go into a season with Andy Dalton? Like no, like this is good insurance to have, but just like you're not expecting Andy Dalton to win you anything per se. You don't expect him to lose you anything. But you don't expect him to go out there and win you games. That's not what he's there for. He's there strictly as insurance that they don't have to turn to Cooper Rush. Which is completely fair. But again, it's just the whole dynamic of it is just weird for me. It's like, just pay Dak. If you think he's the guy, and you should think he's the guy at this point, based on what he's done for you, just pay him. Everybody, the quarterback position gets paid, whether they earn it or whether they deserve it or not. And Dak, in his own right, does deserve the money. So just pay him. I don't understand what the holdup is. It's just weird to me. But yeah, so then that just leaves, I mean, Joe Flacco's out there. Whatever. He's coming off an injury too, so that is what it is. But Cam's still out there, and that's just, he's really the next big dom. I mean, I guess Jadavion Clowney is out there too, which is like weird. Don't know why he hasn't signed anywhere, but whatever. I guess we'll see. Maybe he'll sign somewhere soon. Who knows? But yeah, Cam's probably the last really big quarterback domino to fall, just to see where he goes. And it's the potential he might just sit out the start of the year, because again, some quarterbacks didn't get hurt at some point this year. Now, I would not want that if I'm Cam, because it's going to be too hard to get called up in the middle of a season on a new offense you don't know. And it's going to be hard to just bring you in to a locker room, again, halfway through the season, so the starter's hurt. So I'd want to be in a camp, be with a team before that. But again, if I'm Cam and I don't want to take a backup role, I completely understand. Because again, I'm a guy who's won an MVP in this league, been to a Super Bowl, has been dealing with injuries. He supposedly is like finally healthy now. Like, why would I just take a backup role just because I'm not Jameis? Who, more power to Jameis, but I'm not Jameis where like I need to kind of rehabilitate my image in terms of like this turnover machine, blah 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 kind of situation. Like, that's not what Cam is. Cam needs to just prove he's healthy. If Cam's healthy, then there are much worse starting quarterbacks in the league than Cam Newton, if healthy. There's a lot of teams that would be better with Cam Newton as their quarterback today, keep their roster exactly the same. If Cam Newton's healthy, he's better than what the quarterback situation is right now. There's at least a few teams, not to mention teams that are rebuilding and drafted quarterbacks this year. Quite a few teams that could stand to do worse at the quarterback position than Cam. And he's just sitting out there. It's just, like I said, it's really just a shame for him. It is not, I don't know what it is. injury thing is kind of like a shaky argument to me just because there's injured people that get signed all the time. So it's just maybe just an image thing. People don't feel like bringing that into their locker room, blah, blah, blah. Everyone in Carolina seems to love Cam as a teammate and stuff, so I don't know where that would be from. But hey, everybody has their opinions of him. It is what it is. But hopefully, like I said, I'm looking to see where Cam ends up because that's kind of, like I said, the last big domino to fall. So I'm interesting to monitor, interesting to discuss whenever it does happen. But yeah, so we'll just have to keep our eyes out on that one. So after this next break, we're going to come back and we're going to discuss, I think Monday, when you guys hear this, will be the deadline officially for when first rounders from the 2017 draft can get their fifth-year options picked up. And and I guess kind of discussing who hasn't gotten picked up so far this year. I guess most of the people have. There's been a decision made on them. But it's interesting to see just like, this is why you can't pay attention to draft grades the day of the draft. Because there are a lot of picks on this list that were bad picks. They end up being turned out great, and great picks turned out to be bad. And we'll, like I said, we'll discuss kind of this first round. But yeah, just like this is why you all the teams that you think have good drafts the day of, give it a couple years before you determine for certain. That's why, like I said, I hate draft grades the day of, because again, you don't know. None of you guys have played in the NFL. You don't know how they're going to respond. You don't know how they're going to react. You don't know how they're going to be. But you can give them an A+ grade the day of the draft, and then 3 years down the line, you're just like, oh wow, this is not who we thought it was going to be. That's why you should wait. But yeah, so we'll discuss that and get different things, and just like how badly this draft was, especially at the top, from like a first round pick standpoint. So we'll discuss all that right after the break. Stay right there.
Are you looking for help for your fantasy football team? Check out the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. Get today's best advice on who to start, who to sit, even who you should draft. From sleeper picks to red-hot lineups, they got it all covered for you. That's gsmcpodcast.com/fantasy-football-podcast. We'll cover traditional leagues, dynasty, PPR, even IDP leagues. When you need fantasy help, there's just one show to hit up. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit gsmcpodcast.com for more info.
So, like I said, I think I said this wrong the last time, but the 2017 draft. Oops. Got my cords all tangled. So yeah, the 2017 draft at the top. You got Myles Garrett, the first round pick. You got his option picked up. Then you got Mitch Trubisky of the Chicago Bears did not get his option picked up. Solomon Thomas of the 49ers did not get his first round. He got his fifth year option picked up. Everyone thought that was a great pick at the time. Leonard Fournette, who's been good for the Jaguars, but they didn't pick up his option for whatever reason. And Corey Davis, who didn't get his option picked up either. So in the top five, that is 4 players whose options have not been picked up, which is like, because I know this, Walter Sharp, or at Sharp Football and on Twitter, was talking about mainly the Jaguars and just how poorly they drafted over the years, which, I mean, they definitely have. So that could be a whole another topic. I'm not going to air out their poor drafting in this segment per se, but they've definitely whiffed or they traded or cut the guys that they've picked in the first round. But when you look across different drafts, and again, picking up the 5th year option does not necessarily mean the player was a success. That just means you want to have more time to evaluate. But when you have a top 5 and 4 of the top 5 don't get their 5th year option picked up, where teams are basically just saying, barring something amazing happening this year, we're done with you. And even with that, they still, because again, they only have 1 year left, you would see guys like Corey Davis or John Ross, receiver from Cincinnati, who also didn't get his 5th year option picked up. They could end up getting traded just because it's like, teams will be willing to take a flyer on a guy on a 1 year deal. Maybe he's good. You can sign him long term. You have the advantage to signing him long term because you get the first cracks at him before he hits free agency. And if he's bad, he's bad. You're tied to him for 1 year at whatever the price is for the 5th year option, and then you move on. It's not really there's no real. There's risk because again you're trading an asset for him potentially. Well, not. Oh yeah, I guess asset and potentially player for him, depending on how you view it. But at the same time, there's not really a long term risk. If he's bad, cool, you just move on. It's not like you're not tied to him for any longer than this year. But yeah, it's crazy to see just the fact that so many, again, especially at the top, because that's when you think you have the best of the best. That's when you think those are the guys that can't miss. Those are guys potentially Hall of Famers, guys are going to be with your team for 10, 15 years, and have in the same draft 4 teams. Fournette's not really a whiff. They just, for whatever reason, they just want to move on. Because maybe they just don't feel like paying him, whatever. They're just trying to move on from the old regime, whatever it may be. Fournette's probably the best non-Garrett pick in the top 5. But again, Mitch Trubisky, I'm not going to say an abject disaster, but not great. Solomon Thomas, they had to draft Nick Bosa the year after because he wasn't doing anything. And I think he only started, 3 games this past year. They drafted Nick Bosa and traded for Dee Ford while he was still on the team, which tells you everything you need to know about how his first 2 seasons went with the 49ers. Even still, they traded DeForest Buckner away, and they still were just like, nah, we're not really. If you have a great season this year, cool, but we don't really expect much from you this year. While trading away arguably their best defensive lineman. So you would think you'd have more opportunities, but they're just like, nope, they ended up drafting D tackle in the first round. So yeah, Solomon Thomas is easily on the way out. And again, many people thought that was a great pick at the time when it happened. And also, in that same draft, I think they picked Reuben Foster in the first round, and he's, I don't know what he's up to. I know he had little situations, so I don't know if he's even still in the league or what. Or if he's I think he's on Washington. Last time I checked, but I don't know what's going on with him. He's another first round pick they had. Everyone thought they knocked this one out the park. But both guys may very well not be on the team as of next season. So again, just shows you the imperfect science of the draft is. Again, within the top 10, you had John Ross, I also mentioned. Within the top 15, I know Hassan Riddick, the linebacker from the Cardinals, is supposed to be the next generation linebacker. He's fast, he can rush the passer, he can do this and do that. Went to Arizona. Nothing, really. They have to take Isaiah Simmons, which hopefully they don't. I swear, if the Cardinals ruin him, we need to put a rule and they are not allowed to draft linebackers in the first round. If they ruin Isaiah Simmons, I'm going to be sick. Again, this is not really. This is a quick aside, but then I'm already talking about we're only going to play about linebacker. We're like, what? The man played everywhere in Clemson because he can and because he's good at it. Don't just pigeonhole him to oh. Now that's the issue with NFL coaches. They're so stubborn in a lot of ways. Just in theory, great teams fit their scheme around their players. All right, we have a guy that can do this. We have a guy that can do that. We can have guys that can do this. This is this defense we're going to run. This is the offense we're going to run. This is what we're going to do to utilize their skill sets instead of having all right, for this position I need this kind of guy, or that position I need that kind of guy, or whatever. I understand you want to have him a base position he's going to play. It should have been safety, but whatever. Because when you play strong safety, you can play linebacker, you can play nickel corner, you can do whatever. When you're a linebacker, you're not gonna play I guess you can line up over the slot, or but just it's a different responsibilities. Yeah, let's be personal. Think about if you watched any Eagles football, just how they utilized Malcolm Jenkins over the past couple years. And linebackers have been a little shaky. So what do they use on obvious passing downs? They put him at linebacker, have him sometimes blitz, sometimes cover running backs, sometimes cover tight ends, sometimes play in the slot, sometimes just play underneath coverage. And then again, obviously on downs where they have more traditional linebackers, they have him play safety, but the box safety, so he's up near the line of scrimmage. Which again, Simmons can do that. He can play the single high safety. He can do, again, literally almost anything. I think he played some outside corner just because at Clemson, so from time to time. Again, hope they don't ruin him. But yeah, so just it's just crazy to see, or just crazy to be reminded of what how hard it is to project, or just how hard it is to hit on players in the NFL draft. Because again, even some of the players that did get their first round option picked up, like guys like Derek Barnett from the Eagles, he's been like solid, but he hasn't been like anything great for a first round pick. Same with like Jonathan Allen of Washington. Same with like Adoree Jackson of the Titans. Like none of these guys have been like all pros. OJ Howard, the same thing. They've been trying to trade him for like 2 years. It seems like he got his fifth round. He got his fifth year option picked up. They've been trying to trade him for. Who knows? They're probably going to end up trading him. I mean, I don't want to say that they're going to end up, but it's potential just because they have Gronk now. So not to say what's the point, but like you don't necessarily need him as much as you did before you had Gronk. Again, there's a lot of even players that quote unquote have been good, or quote unquote, I mean not quote unquote, but got their option picked up, haven't even been solid picks for the teams. Like I know the Giants picked the options for Evan Ingram and Jabril Peppers. They're talking. I mean, people don't even know if they're going to keep Evan Ingram at tight end. They're trying to move him to wide receiver, which is like weird. But I mean, he's fast, so whatever. But again, being a good receiver for a tight end, being a good receiver for a receiver is a completely different thing. You need to, when you're tight end, you're running routes against linebackers or safeties, whatever, and you're faster than most of those guys. Now you're running routes against corners. You need to be more refined, you need to be more detailed, and again, that speed is not the same because a lot of corners have the good speed, so you're not going to be automatically more athletic than them. You're going to be bigger, but you're not going to be more athletic than them. That's weird. Jabril Peppers been with the team 1 year. Got hurt last year. Wasn't bad for the Giants. But again, just another guy who they traded for, and they know, like, he wasn't great, but he wasn't bad. So, like, we kind of stuck with him. We might as well just see what an extra year will do. Kind of thing, just an extra year to be able to view him. And then again, but so, yeah, it's just like, even within that, there are guys that got their fifth-year option picked up that hadn't even been what you would call hits for their team, which shows that again the variance is even more high for just like how hard it is to have a good draft. Like everyone just thinks it's so easy, and just like all right, just like you look at the draft grade and like all right, this team did great or that team did great or whatever, and I'm just like it's not that simple. It really isn't. People make it out to be like, oh, this team knocked it out of the park. Or these picks are great. I mean, we're talking about the 2012, I believe it was. Yeah, the Seahawks draft. They got terrible grade. They got ripped to shreds by a lot of draft graders, especially for like the Bobby Wagner pick. Like, why did you pick a linebacker out of Utah State? For the Russell Wilson pick too. I know the Bruce Irvin pick was, depending on who you asked, was a little bit shaky. And then that draft helped literally won them Super Bowl. And got them two of the best players of their own position in the NFL currently today. That draft grade ripped to shreds. The Mahomes draft pick, if you go back and read different analysis of that pick by the Chiefs, everyone was killing them, more or less. I don't say everybody, but a lot of outlets were killing them for that pick. It's like, oh, he's so raw, he's so unpredictable, he put up great stats, but it's Texas Tech, he never won anything, blah blah blah. And again, maybe just Andy Reid's that good, and it allowed him to sit for a year. But now he's the best quarterback in the game. One of the most talented quarterbacks we've ever seen play the position. But that draft, we got ripped to shreds the night of. Like I'm just saying, so I thought this was an interesting topic to talk about, just because we're fresh off this recent draft. But just like temper your expectations, good and bad, because even the guys whose job it is to analyze this don't have any clue. You really don't. Because in theory, every team should hit on their first round pick every year. Because these are probably the 32 best players coming into the draft this year. That should be easy to determine. But no. You know why? Because there's a lot of contributing factors that go into being successful in the NFL. Scheme, coaching, fit, the player themselves, whether or not they're built, because not everybody's built to be an NFL player, whether that means like physically or mentally or emotionally, whatever. You don't really know until you're put in that position, and how you're going to react to adversity, how you're going to be able to handle success or handle failure, things like that, because most of the guys have been successful their whole life. So how do they deal with adversity? How do they deal with an unideal situation? How do they deal with coaching changes? How do they deal with scheme changes? Or how do they deal with different types of coaching? You don't know that to get in the league. So you think you have things, and then come to find out, it's not that simple. So yeah, I just thought it was really good conversation to have, just again, to get people to temper their expectations. Because look at that. Top 5. A top 5 in the draft. And one of the guys got their first round, 5th-year option picked up. One. That means 4 teams are ready to move on from this player that they picked in the top 5 of a draft. Again, those are the pillars, the cornerstones of your franchise you pick in the top 5. The guys that you think could be lifelong members of your team, could be potentially Hall of Fame caliber type players. And 4 teams whiffed. I would say 3 in impossible teams whiffed, because again, Fournette isn't bad, but I guess just they want to move on from him. But 3 teams completely whiffed on their first round pick. And I still think Corey Davis could be good too. The corporate situation for him was a little shaky, but then Tannehill came in, played better, and the rookie A.J. Brown was better than he was. Again, not to say he can't be good, because I was very high on him coming out of the draft. But, I mean, Mitch, complete whiff. Solomon Thomas, complete whiff. And again, just remind everybody, drafts are not that cut and dry after the day of. So just, again, everyone just notch their expectations back just a wee bit. But yeah, I just thought that was an interesting conversation. Because that's, when you realize just how many, when I saw how many, like, of the top players weren't getting their options picked up, I figured, like, yeah, it's just a good thing to talk about. Just, again, just get people to understand the draft is very difficult. If you have an average of 7-8 picks, if like 3 of those guys are key contributors on your team, that's a great draft. People forget that. They just think like, oh, all these guys are going to contribute and be great for the team. Like that just doesn't happen. It doesn't. If you hit on like 5 picks in a draft, you're one of the best drafting teams in the world. It just doesn't happen. So yeah, everyone temper expectations. And speaking of tempering expectations, I'm going to talk about apparently Vegas has officially gone on board in saying that they will be a bubble city for different teams and sports leagues to be able to restart. So I'm going to talk about the details of that and what that could mean and like how soon that could mean we could potentially have sports starting back up. Because I mean, as I've discussed, I don't think it's a good idea, but the sports leagues seem to want to get things underway, so they may take Vegas up on their offer. So we'll talk about all that stuff right after this break. Stay right there.
Are you looking to get your college football fix? Looking to get the latest news on your favorite school's team? The GSMC College Football Podcast is your ticket to all things college football. Join us as we talk college football from the national championship, the college rivalries, the bowl game, to the Heisman Trophy. To which conference is the best? We've got you covered for the Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, the Pac-12, ACC, and everything in between. Download the GSMC College Football Podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, Google Play, or anywhere you find podcasts. Just type GSMC in the search bar.
This came out Saturday, May 2nd, but there's a report coming out that MGM Resorts offers to host NBA in Bubble City to finish the season. While the sports world searches for ways to resume, MGM Resorts International has offered to create a bubble city for the leagues like the NBA and WNBA on the Las Vegas Strip. According to New York Times' Kevin Draper, MGM proposed housing athletes and related sports staff in the quarantine block on the Strip. The offer was extended to the NBA, WNBA, NHL, and MLS, all leagues that have yet to figure out when or how they can safely finish their seasons. In MGM's proposal to the NBA, the resort reportedly said the Mandalay Bay would serve as the hub since it's connected to other hotels and the convention center. Athletes' families would be allowed to stay with them in the quarantine resort. That doesn't seem like a good idea. And have access to amenities like restaurants, casinos, and spas. As many as 24 basketball courts could be built at the convention center at the Mandalay Bay, which hosts the Aces of the WNBA.
5 would be used to telecast games, while others would be for practice. Draper reports. The idea of the NBA resuming its season in Las Vegas is obviously, we discussed it on this podcast and it's already been pitched. The other option has been potentially being in Orlando, at the Walt Disney World, because they have a lot of they have a lot of hotels, there were different resorts and stuff. They have the whole wide world of sports things. So they have a lot of facilities to potentially be able to use. So that was an option that was floated around. We'll see if anybody will take them up on that. And while the NBA season is currently halted, the NBA is targeting May 8th, which will be Friday? Yeah, Friday, as the earliest date for opening practice facilities in areas where stay-at-home orders have been eased. On Friday afternoon, this past Friday, the NBA also announced that it has indefinitely postponed the draft lottery and draft combine in May due to the coronavirus pandemic. The NBA decision to postpone the combine appears to be the first step of potentially moving the league's draft. The 2020 draft is currently scheduled for June 25th in Brooklyn. So that's probably just not going to happen. Because you have to have the draft lottery before that, and the combine. So if they don't have either of those events, and they can't have the draft, makes sense. And in an effort to have time to finish the 2019-2020 season, I should say, and give players a full offseason, the league has also mulled potentially delaying the start of the next season until December, which we have discussed on this podcast. They should do. Whatever. But yeah, so just, again, it's just, this is, before we just kind of floated around the idea of being in Vegas or being in Florida or being wherever you wanted to put this bubble city. But now it seems like the MGM in Vegas is officially on board with doing that. And again, I understand why. They're losing out of money. Because especially when you have cities like that, you have somewhere like Disney or something that their whole income and all their revenue and and the entire purpose for existence, that seems a little strong, but like, you get my point, is based on tourism. So no tourism, you just have a bunch of hotels and convention centers and arenas and stuff that just aren't being used for anything right now. And a lot of people out of work, a lot of people not being able to and utilize the facilities, and also, again, the state's losing a lot of money because that's where most of their money comes from, is the tourism and people using this kind of thing. So I could see why. I know they're already talking about, it was the mayor of Vegas? I'm pretty sure it was the mayor of Vegas. She's talking about they need to reopen and blah, 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 and that they're losing money and they can just do whatever. And then I think she was on with, I think it was Anderson Cooper she was on with, and then the guy was talking about he asked her about his own family. She's like, "Oh no, I'm not going to do that. Why would I do that and put myself at risk?" So it's just it's crazy. Las Vegas is in a weird shape, just because, again, the mayor wants to open, but also realizes the dangers of it. So why is not going to subject their family to it, but she wants to reopen everything. It seems a little crazy. But this offer seems to be right in line with that, where Vegas seems to want to be able to open things back up because, again, they're losing a lot of money. And from a financial standpoint for them, I get it. Again, not safe, but I get it. They're losing out of money, and they just have all these things, all these hotels, all these, like I said, the convention center, the different arenas that just aren't being used. They hosted the Summer League, so they have other courts too outside of the convention center that could be used. But yeah, they're just all just collecting dust at the moment. So I understand why they're just hey, we might as well just do it here. But then again, like I've said, it has been my biggest issue through this whole thing and starting things back up. With no vaccine or no cure or whatever, or no real way to... Because, again, even if you test somebody, one time, when they first get there, cool. But you gotta continually test them, all the time, because you don't... It's not like the virus just... If you don't have it at first, you're never going to get it. You don't know when somebody can pick it up. What are you going to test them, weekly? Daily? How is this going to work? Because, daily, daily would seem like the best option. There's just not enough tests to do that. And weekly, that's probably too late, because if somebody catches it, you've already had it for a week, so who knows who else you've exposed it to. So yeah, just the testing thing is probably the biggest issue for me in trying to restart it. Just with no cure, it's just how do you maintain everybody safe? Even this was talking about keeping the people's families with them, and then now you're exposing more people. Again, still not safe. And then, like I said, you gotta, if you bring this back now, you gotta have all these workers at the restaurants or the hotels or the arenas and stuff Now, these guys are going to potentially get exposed. Like, how do you keep them safe? Obviously, there's no fans, but just that, like, how do you make sure that they're not going home to their family and then getting it and then passing it along to different players or coaches or whoever? It's just like, it's just too hard to police all this stuff. And that was another thing that I hadn't thought of. Really, I mean, actually I knew it was unsafe for everybody. But just like the interesting point that a lot of GMs had in potentially restarting the season was the fact that, like, a lot of these coaches aren't, like, either A, that young, or B, in, like, their best physical shape that they've been in their life. I don't know, like, the older people are not supposedly, but it's been said that they're more prone to getting this disease and obviously it potentially being fatal for them. Even though they say, like, young people, it's not supposed to be a big deal, a lot of young people don't know about pre-existing conditions they have because not everybody can go to a doctor or afford to go to a doctor or get those things checked out. Like, most of the time you go to a doctor, get a physical, you just, like, they check your heartbeat, like, they, like, have you, like, checking your ears and do, like, regular stuff, check your blood pressure, stuff like that. But no one's doing, like, expansive tests on, like, your lungs or, like, your heart or whatever. And then now young people are getting in, like, it's being fatal for them, and you're wondering, like, how is this possible? This person was young and healthy and blah, blah, blah. Which is, like, obviously maybe they had some sort of condition they didn't know about because it's just not something they needed to know for everyday life up until the point where they got the virus, and now they have the virus, and again, like I said, it becomes fatal. So, I thought that was an interesting point was that the GMs were like, look, there's a lot of older coaches in the league and older staff members and whoever. You're putting them at risk. Like, what are they going to do, like, not coach? Like, Pop's going to not coach? Even though potentially he could be at higher risk. Like, what would the Spurs do? And obviously they have assistants and stuff. We're just like, we're going to come back and not have Pop coach. Like, that's just be weird. And again, he's not the only one. I'm trying to think of what another, like, older coach. I'm drawing a blank. I know Pop's the most prominent one. But again, like, it doesn't have to be an older coach. Like, not like it's not like it's just like if you're under 65, like, you're good. Like, that's not the thing. Like, people of all ages are catching this and dying from it. So just about, like I said, anybody's at risk to a degree. I mean, obviously, again, supposedly if you're younger, it's less likely, but it's not. This percentage is not zero. Let's put it that way. All it's going to take is one athlete to catch it, or one, like, coach or whoever to catch it and not survive, and they will shut everything down indefinitely until there's a cure. I promise you. And no one wants that. No one wants to be the league that has the first casualty from this disease. Because if they open things back up, it's potentially going to happen. I'm not going to say it's definitely going to happen because, again, in the grand scheme of, like, the country, the amount of people that have perished is low, but it's more than zero. So, the fact that any people are dying from this disease is enough to cause concern for me. And I imagine it's enough to cause concern for Adam Silver and the different players and coaches and whoever. I understand why they want to try to get it finished off, but it just, again, if it's not safe, it's not safe. There's not much you can do about that. And also, again, even with that aside, they already pushed, like I said, they pushed the draft already back, they pushed the combine back. They already kind of setting in motion the fact that the next season is not going to start on time. That was the big reason why the NFL didn't want to do it, I should say. Was based on the fact that once you do that, then you're basically pushing back the timeline for the season. And obviously we know the timeline for this season is being pushed back in the NBA, but once you start putting the drafts and stuff back, then the timeline continues to get pushed back. Because, like many players have said, they need probably about 4 to 6 weeks to get everything back together. So that's like, even if you open stuff up on Friday, you're talking about restarting at best mid to late June, like best case scenario. And then, all right, you do that, you probably got another, like I said, you got another month of the regular season, then 2 months for the postseason. You're starting, even if you start, like I said, you start mid-June. Then you start the playoffs in mid-July. You're not finishing until sometime in September, near the end of September. I guess you still got to do the draft and the combine and all that stuff somewhere in there. And then you got to do free agency. Then you got to, like, have an off season, at least a couple months off. Then you got to start the season up again. The season's not, if they continue the season's not starting again until December, at best. At best. Like, best case scenario, it starts in December. In my opinion, if they replay the season. Now, if they don't want to do that, then just cancel the season and try to pick it back up in August. Hope the second wave's already gone, so you're good. Who knows? Because apparently, people believe the second wave is going to be worse than the first wave. We don't really know. Because that's just how viruses work. We really don't know how it's going to go. But yeah, it's like, alright, you hope for the best later on if you don't want to push the season back. But again, if you want to finish out the season by any means necessary, you're going to have to push the next season back. And then from there, you can just, like I said, you can't, once you do that, you're basically just on pace to just have every season start late. From there on out. Because you can't then have next season be a shortened off season. Like, that doesn't make any sense. If you're not going to finish up, if you start in December, you're not going to finish up the regular season until June and not finish up the playoffs till August, how are you going to start again in October? This is not possible. So basically, they have to decide, are they okay with starting every season from here on out in December, as they should be? I don't see, this should be a no-brainer for me, but hey, teach their own, we'll see what Adam Silver decides to do. But, yeah. At least it's on the table now. The offer's on the table. They can choose to take it. If they don't want to take it, like I said, the MLS, WNBA, NHL, whoever can take it, see what happens. But at least an official offer is out there for this Bubble City plan. Before, it just kind of floated around. Like, now is a legitimate proposition or proposal for, like, hey, we will do this if you want to do this. And now we just wait and see. We wait and see what teams, or what leagues decide to do. And whenever they decide to do it, we will be here to discuss it. But yeah, so after this last break, we're going to come back here and we're going to discuss a conversation that was had over the weekend about older players being able to dominate in this league and younger players, players from the older era being able to come into this era and dominate, and players in the new era not being able to dominate in the old era. It was a big conversation back and forth about different generations, and it just led me. It's just a whole lot of foolishness, in my opinion. These debates, all of it is kind of foolish, and I'll explain to you why I believe all that stuff and like what the foolish baseline for this debate to even get started was, and all that fun stuff right after this break. So stay right there.
Check out the show built around the women of MMA. From the UFC, Invicta FC, Bellator, and one championship. We got the fights covered. It's the Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast. The latest news of upcoming fights, discussions of previous matches. Join us as we talk to and about the biggest names in women's mixed martial arts. Past, present, and future. When it's the women's fight game, you know where to listen to. The Golden State Media Concepts Women's MMA Podcast.
So, this debate, or this discussion, if you will, started early Friday. Well, I don't want to, not necessarily early Friday, but there was a clip tweeted out by the NBA Central, which came from Get Up, of Mike Wilbon and Jalen Rose talking about the upcoming, or kind of just previewing or discussing the upcoming Last Dance episodes that obviously we already discussed on this podcast, but people were, I guess, well, no, it was his, no, was it? No, I think it was his agent or his trainer came out and said that Jordan, if he played today, could average like 50 or 60. David Falk, I believe, said that in like in an interview. I'm trying to remember. I want to get who David Falk is. David Falk is his agent. All right, that's what I thought. It's not his trainer, his agent. Man, he made a lot of money. I mean, imagine being Jordan's agent. Shoot. Take that back, because whatever percentage Rich Paul getting off people's contracts now is absurd. You know, the money's bigger. He's got like a lot of high profile comments. Plus, he knows LeBron, so that helps. But that's neither here nor there. So yeah, so he was the one that said that Jordan could average 50 or 60, and then Jalen Rose came out and said that he thinks he could average like 47.5 points or something like that. Which, again, absurd, but we will get to all that. And then Mike Wilbon was on record saying that, like, well, I guess he said in this clip, which you can, again, find at the NBA Central, and it's from Get Up, so I imagine you can find it on their Twitter account, too, maybe even YouTube. Mike Wilbon says that KD and LeBron wouldn't dominate the 80s and 90s. There's no one now who would have dominated the 80s and 90s, he said, in the clip. And, boy, do I have a lot of issues with that statement. Both statements, obviously. But I'll start with Wilbon first. Number one, as Jordan talked about in this last episode, players were drinking 12 packs and smoking cigarettes at halftime of games in the 80s. Now, if you take LeBron or KD and just drop them in the 80s, now maybe are they doing the same thing? Potentially. But, I mean, none of them... by the 80s, I think we I don't know how... That's a good question. I would need to ask that older person. How much did they know about how bad cigarettes were? Like, when did that start to come up? Like, 2000s is when it, like, became, like, a thing, like, oh, these are bad for you? Probably, but, I mean... Again, I just don't... Regardless of that fact of it. You take LeBron, put him in the 80s. He's still one of, if not the best player in the history of the world. The history of the sport. Take KD, put him in the 80s. I mean, if you tell me not LeBron. If you tell me Larry Bird, a great player, no argument, could dominate, and a guy that is more skilled than him and Kevin Durant couldn't, then that's blasphemous, and I shouldn't take your sports opinion on literally anything else. If you legitimately believe that a game in an era dominated by Larry Bird would not be dominated by Kevin Durant if you put him in that same time period, that's absurd. That's patently absurd. And again, you talk about LeBron. All those Jordan rules and stuff, and like they hit him and all that stuff, like that's cool. Except LeBron is like 6'8", like 260. Now again, maybe his physical physique would be a little bit different because the training regimens are different, and he can't pay $1 million to put into his body now, all that stuff. So that aspect of it is fair. But if he can still just like work, it's not that they don't have weights. Like they may not have like cryogenic chambers and things like that to help do things, but you can still like work out. And if LeBron can still work out and get up near where he's at now, the Jordan rules thing that doesn't work. He's bigger than everybody. That's the thing. That's why the Jordan rules like don't work. Like that's why you couldn't do the Jordan rules with LeBron now, because he's too big, too strong, too fast. And Jordan again was more athletic than people, could jump higher, could do a lot of special things, but he wasn't like a big guy. Again, he's only like 6'6" or whatever. LeBron's like 6'8", 6'9", a lot bigger just physically. So all that stuff doesn't work. Like it's gonna beat him up, obviously, but at the same time, like it's not gonna have the same effect. I mean, LeBron he gets a lot of foul calls, but I mean he doesn't get some foul calls. Again, he's just so much bigger than guys. Sometimes people don't call it, so that's just would have been with. So he would have become a better free throw shooter. But I don't see how you think LeBron couldn't have been just as dominant back then. Again, you take him. I don't even take like this version of him. Take like the version of him that scored how many ever points it was in a row, 25 or whatever against the Pistons in that one game. Take that version. So a young LeBron, put him in the 80s, 90s, or wherever. He's going to be amazing. It doesn't like that. That doesn't change the fact. Like it's just that's the thing. I hate comparing eras. That was like my main point of this bringing this topic up, which is the fact that I hate comparing eras in any sports because every era is different. The game is different. The players are different. The training regimen is different. The diet and what is acceptable to do. Like again, back in the days, like early NBA, early MLB days, people were working 2 jobs, coming to games. Now people train literally year round for this sport. It's like it's different. Guys are bigger now, they're stronger now, they're faster now, they're more athletic, they understand things more, they understand health more, they're more conscious of these things. Everyone, I'm not to say no one in the NBA smokes cigarettes, but no one's doing it at halftime because they know it's bad for you. No one's doing like drugs in the dugout of games or in the middle of games or whatever. At least I don't think. I don't know that for a fact, but I don't believe like they used to do. I mean, to look at those. I mean, look at the what was it, 86 Mets? They were doing drugs and having relations with women in the middle of the game. And we're still good. So again, this is mainly about the MLB, but mainly about the NBA, but you tell me people from now that aren't doing any of those things couldn't go back and you tell me Mike Trout wouldn't be the best player in the history of the sport no matter what era you dropped him in? No one would say that because it's absurd. Just like it's absurd to believe that LeBron and KD wouldn't dominate in a game. Again, mind you, dominated by players who are less talented and less athletic and less physical than they are currently. That's absurd. It's absurd. It's patently absurd. I don't understand that. And also, again, the whole aspect of LeBron would average. Jordan would average 47 or whatever. First off, no. And my biggest issue with that, just the whole he didn't shoot threes. No one at that time shoot threes. Larry Bird shot threes. There were good 3-point shooters during that time. Don't act like no one shot threes. Just that wasn't Jordan's game, and that's fine. He was the greatest player ever, in my opinion. But okay, he wasn't a lights out 3-point shooter. That's fine. Look at Kobe. Kobe's, again, in many people's words, the greatest or closest incarnation we're going to get of Michael Jordan in a modern era game. And if you look at his career 3-point shooting, he was, for his career, a 33% 3-point shooter. Kobe, who again works as hard as anybody, wants to be great as badly as anybody, shot 32.9% from his career for his career from three, on 4 attempts a game. What's to say Jordan would just be a 40% a 40% 3-point shooter? Why am I supposed to assume they hit 6 threes and a half once? No, 3-point line existed when he played during his time. Again, was everybody shooting threes what they are now? No, of course not. But it's not like LeBron is not taking 8 threes a game now. That's not his game, and he knows that. He does other things well, and he utilizes them. Just like Kobe did other things well. He's all right, let me not use that. LeBron for his career shoots on average 4.3 threes a game at a 34%. Why am I supposed to expect Jordan's going to be any higher than that? And again, his career average is 30 points. So you're telling me you put him into his game, he averages 17 and a half more points? No, that's absurd. KD, one of the most efficient and best shooters, or scorers, I should say, in the history of the sport, averaged 27 points on 18.7 attempts, while also shooting 38% from 3 and 50% from the field, basically, and almost 90% from the free throw line, 88%. Michael Jordan, who averaged 30 points for his career, shot the ball 22 times, so over 4 more attempts than KD to only get 3 more points, and shot a whopping 32.7% from 3. Again, on only 1.7 attempts. So bump that up to double that. All right, so instead of making 0.5 a game, he makes 1 a game, maybe a little bit more, 1 to 2 a game, more a game. All right, he's not that doesn't equal up to 17 and a half more points. And I understand the whole you couldn't hand check. If you can't hand check now, you can hand check back in the day. You know why you could hand check? Because people weren't good enough to stay in front of guys. I'm sorry. The Bad Boy Pistons did what they did because they didn't have the defense good enough to defend Michael Jordan 1-on-1. That's why they did that, because they knew all right, we're not as talented as some of these other teams. But if we just beat them up, they're not going to want to go. They're not going to physically be able to handle it. And once Jordan was physically able to handle it, wow, look what happened. All right, so because you can't hand check now, that means the defensive players have to be better because they don't have that crutch available to them. But you can't just like put your hand on a guy and then that like slow down their momentum. And also they're like calling less fouls. They're calling more fouls than they were back in the day. Like you could do a lot of things and it might get called, it might not get called, but it wasn't going to be serious. It's not going to be like a lot of stuff the Bad Boy Pistons did would get them ejected from games now, as it should be. That wasn't happening back then. So now you have to be a better defender. You can't just run and just clobber a guy as soon as he walks through the lane. That's not how it works. You have to try to defend without fouling. Like look at the best defenders, like the Kawhis, the Giannis's, the Ben Simmons, the Draymonds. Again, not that I say that anything could necessarily stop LeBron, but has LeBron ever faced a guy that's 6'10", with freakishly long arms that can move and is just as athletic as, not just as, but just like close to as athletic as he is? No. Never seen anything like that. The white guy, like, like a different guy like Ron Harper and like the Dan Majeri guy from the Suns, like these were guys that they thought could do a good job on Michael Jordan. Not that they were bad players for their time or whatever, like they were solid players, I imagine, but like they're not the Greek Freak, they're not Ben Simmons, they're not Kawhi, they're not Paul George. Like we're talking about a different caliber of player here. And you're telling me like Jordan just walked into the league and averaged 17.5 more points than he averaged for his career? Absurd. Even Harden, who utilizes the 3-pointer and the free throw line better than anyone else in the league, only averages like 36 a game. So he's going to add 10 more points to that? No. Just not going to happen. I'm sorry. Michael Jordan is great, but he's not that good. Like, again, that good in terms of being able to be that much better than every other person that's playing currently. Again, and he's great. He's the greatest player ever. But he's not 17 points per game better than his career average if he just plays in that. Like, no. That's stupid. Comparing eras in all sports is dumb to me. Because there's no way to win. You don't know. You don't know. Because every player, as time goes by, things get better. Players get better. They get faster. They get stronger. They get more skilled. They're able to do more things. Like back in the day, a guy Kevin Durant's size would have to put on weight and be in the post. He wouldn't have been able to handle the ball out at the 3-point line and shoot from 35 feet. That's not a thing that would have happened. But again, with evolution, because like a basic human thing, he got the 7-foot guys now can do crazy things like that. That was usually reserved for the smaller guys. Now the big guys can do that. They can handle the ball. They can run the break at 7 feet. And look at Anthony Davis. He can run the break. He can defend at a high level. He can shoot threes. He can hit jumpers. He can hit free throws. He can do everything, literally. Again, he used to be a point guard, but like he can do everything at like 6'10", 7 feet. That's not a thing that was happening in the NBA back in the days. And in 20 years now, there's going to be like literally the point guards, their average height's going to be like 6'6", 6'7". Center's going to be like 7'8" or whatever. Like, I don't know. That's what's going to be. Like, the small forward's going to be 7 feet tall, all of them. That's just what's going to happen. Just, like, again, it's just basic human thing. That's why it's stupid to compare eras. You can't. Because you can't take a guy from that time and put him, like, you take Jordan from that time and put him in now, his athleticism is not as crazy as it was back in that day. It's not. It's still amazing. But, like, guys like Zach LaVine and different things, like, can do all the things that Jordan could do now, at least athletically, like from a dunking standpoint. You look at the dunk contest from back then to now. You do the same dunks that him and Dominique did in the one All-Star game. You don't make it out of the first round. You don't. But now, all of a sudden, back in that time, now you're a winner. But now you got to do crazy things. You got to jump over people. You got to go between your legs. Do all the fancy stuff. Like I said, it's just a futile argument. And I just saw it over the weekend, and I was like, why are we doing this? Because there's no winning. You don't know. And you never will know. All these players are great. So, like, what's the point of trying to compare them? Because you just don't know. But then, while it's fair, at the same time, don't speak blasphemy. That's all I'm saying. Don't tell me Jordan could average 47 points. No, he can't. I'm sorry. It's not going to happen. Not going to happen. I don't care what there's no argument you can tell me that he would come into the NBA and average 47 points. No one's averaging 40. You're not going to let you happen. They're going to fight you before that happens. I promise you. I promise you. But yeah. I'm getting a little worked up over that. But yeah, I saw that this weekend, and I was like, come on. Like, this is why we need to get new people on TV shows these days. Because the people that they have now are just saying outlandish things all the time. It's just foolish. Like I said, it's just a worthless argument. There's no winning or no losing. Whatever stance you have on this is going to be a stance you have before or after the debate. So it's like, what's the point? Honestly. Like, what is the point? But yeah. Stupid argument, in my opinion. But there you have it. And that'll do it for me here today on GSMC Sports Podcast, presented by GSMC Podcast Network. I want to thank you guys for listening. Thank you guys for listening to Ramble, especially at the end. Thank you, like I said, listening for me talk about sports. If you like what you heard, subscribe to the podcast. Make sure you never miss an episode. Make sure you're on the top when we drop our latest stuff. Also, if you could please give us a 5-star rating, 5-star review. Very appreciated, very helpful to see what you guys like, what you guys didn't like. Also, if you're on social media, so we can talk, chat, debate, discuss things there. Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, find us on all those platforms. We can discuss The Last Dance. You can talk about why Jordan would come in and average 50. You can talk about how the Bubble City thing might work. Because, again, I'm against it. I don't think it's going to work out. But maybe I'm wrong. It wouldn't be the first thing I've ever been wrong about. So, if you think I'm going to be wrong, hey, I'm more than willing to talk about it. So, yeah. A lot of different things we can discuss there. So, please reach out to us there. And before I get done here, as always, I want to make sure I give a shout out to the essential workers out there. Making sure everybody else out here is safe, making sure we can, the normal people of the world can go about their daily life as if nothing's going on. I mean, not if nothing's going on, obviously we know what's going on, but I can continue to do their thing, continue to be safe, continue to get food, continue to be cared for, continue to make sure that, like I said, if we do get sick, there's somebody there that can take care of us on those front lines. I know that's not a fun job, it's not a lucrative job, but, I mean, maybe lucrative in terms of, I know doctors get paid well, but it's, right now, it can't be that fun. You're working heavy hours. You're under a lot of stress. I imagine it's got to be very rough. But, unfortunately, someone has to do it. And shout out to you guys for being those people that are willing and able to do that. So, appreciate all you guys. Continue to shout you guys out every podcast episode. But, that'll do it for me here. I've been Chris Blades. That has been my time. And until next time, peace out.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. From movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.